You're listening to the EquiRatings Eventing Podcast, the show with a light-hearted look at the eventing world, all of the big event previews, reviews, and special guests, and of course, backed up with all of the key EquiRating stats. Welcome to the EquiRatings Eventing Podcast. Welcome to the EquiRatings Eventing Podcast. And listeners, we have got a brand new series for you on the show. It is all about the future stars of our sport. And with me, my co-host for this series, and particularly this show, of course, it can be no other man than somebody who champions the youth of today and the stars of the future. Spike, welcome to the show. And let's just start by explaining sort of why we're doing this, because actually we talk about a lot of these very talented young riders, and we talk about, it's easy to talk about the people winning 5 stars every day, or Piggy March, Michael Young, everybody like that. But actually, we want to shine a light on those riders that will be at the top of the game for many, many years to come. And that is what this series is all about.
Yeah, so good evening, Nicole. Good evening, viewers. I'm absolutely delighted that we are doing this series now. It is something that I'm hugely passionate about, and we've talked about and touched on in various previews in the past, but to be able to champion people that are coming into this great sport of ours and have a career ahead of them in what is not only a great sport, but such a hugely challenging sport to get into and then to be successful in. So I can't wait to be introducing people to some backstories of some genuine future stars, some people that deserve the airtime and deserve the added interest that people can really see them grow and see them develop into household
future
names
stars.
hopefully in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are going to be talking to riders from all over the world. So yes, we are starting with a British rider today, but we will be going to the US. We will be going hopefully over to Australia, New Zealand, and into Europe as well. So this isn't just a British show. It is very much future stars throughout the world. But let me introduce you to our first guest on the show. She is 22 years old. She is ranked inside the FEI top 200. She has medals at junior and young rider level. She is none other than Felicity Collins. Felicity, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on.
We're really looking forward to digging a little bit into your backstory, because it is a really, really interesting one. And the word that I think that sort of stuck out to me is hard graft. And actually going back through your early childhood, your mum, Vicky, rode up to advanced level. She was actually shortlisted for Atlanta back in 1996 on a homebred, but very much came from nothing. And that sort of work ethic and everything has come through to you. Just tell us a bit about life growing up, because it was very much something that you have worked at, and your mum is still a big part of your career now.
Yeah, massively so. So she's extremely supportive and comes to, every event with me. She stopped competing herself about 5 years ago now, but she now kind of lives it all through me. The moment she actually kind of decided she had to stop herself and kind of hand the reins fully over to me was when she says she remembers it. We were both in the same section. I think it was a novice at Goring Heath, and the course kind of ran past. At one point, she kind of crossed over, and I think I went ahead of her. And she said she remembered coming into fence 4, and she was more interested in checking out what I was doing over the other side of the course. And I think it was at that point that she sort of thought, maybe actually I shouldn't be trying to do it as well as watching me and being more worried about me. So yeah, for as long as I can remember, I've sort of grown up with going in the lorry with mum to events. I think I was born in January, and by March, she was out eventing again and had me in the little carry cot in the lorry and used to take me along to all these events with her. And yeah, as you mentioned, from a completely non-horsey background, I think her granny gave her some money to buy her first horse, like £300 or something, and just completely horse mad. Like the sort of stories she tells me are just like, she just lived for it. She was one of those properly pony mad kids. And, I was obviously lucky enough that she was encouraging me, so I didn't have to kind of go and do the whole riding school thing with the non-horse, begging the non-horsey parents to take her out to the riding school once a week. But completely, I honestly don't know how she did it. And to be able to own a farm of her own where I'm based now, and own her own yard. I'm very lucky because that's all down to her, and she properly came from nothing and was one of those people that went from renting yard to yard to yard. She always tells me these stories, like, in the pouring rain, she'd go from one yard where she rented 2 stables somewhere, and then she went to another yard where she had 1 stable, then she went and rode a horse with someone else, half an hour away or whatever, and she'd just be driving about all day and just didn't even question it. I think that's the thing I find most admirable about it, is that she just didn't even think twice, didn't ever look back. That's what she did, and that's what she wanted to do. She didn't ever question if she was mad. I think she does now. And she used to say, she did used to say to me, I don't know if she'll like me saying this, but she did used to say to me, just for God's sake, whatever you do, don't do horses, don't do what I did, don't end up like me, kind of thing. And I don't know why she says that, because, everything she's worked for, and, even if it's not competing now, just, owning a yard and being able to, support me in that way, and so that I can kickstart my career thanks to that, is, a really amazing thing.
But it kind of comes through, doesn't it? Because obviously your mum worked exceptionally hard to come from nothing. But actually, when you were growing up, am I right in saying that actually, you would often get the tricky or the difficult ponies, and it wasn't a case of having sort of ready-made ponies that you were able to sort of go out and crack on with. You very much sort of made that ground for yourself and sort of made your own way in that respect as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I have been lucky to have have all in their own rights been amazing ponies, amazing horses. And I think I was chatting to my mum earlier about it and talking about being on this show and everything. And she said, well, I think what, sets you apart is that you always believed in the ponies you were riding. Like, obviously looking back, they were very difficult, and, they probably, some of them weren't really quite good enough, to be going out against the competition that they were against, and for me to be desperately wanting to win, I was always on something that probably really wasn't quite good enough. But if you'd asked me at the time, I would never have admitted it. I genuinely thought that no, I believe in this pony, or I believe in this horse, and I'm going to make it the best, even if it perhaps wasn't. I was a little bit blind to that, and it just was that kind of get your head down and make it happen kind of attitude, which I definitely got from my mum, because we didn't have the money to go and buy anything that was particularly special. So often, I'd kind of not always, but cast offs, or ones that have been a bit difficult, and or had a quirk, or and often that was always reflected slightly in the performance. So they wouldn't be ones that would be winning all the time, but a lot of, if people knew the backstory, they'd be thinking, wow, actually it's amazing that pony's even gone round that event, or that horse is at that level. So no, definitely, I've certainly ridden a few strange, quirky ones, and I think when I was younger, I didn't realize as much. I think it's once I got into more of doing the pony trials really seriously, or doing the juniors seriously, and doing the young riders seriously, you realize the ponies and horses that are in the sport, and you think, my God, like, they are really exceptional, and the competition is so high. Like, they are just all of these ponies and horses. And that's when I think I started to realize, when I was on whatever I was on, I did start to think, this doesn't seem quite right. This doesn't seem quite matched up to some other people. But I loved it. I loved proving a point.
So the first time I met you, Felicity, was 7 years ago in 2013 over in Harastapan, which I think was your first overseas event. And I was there in my little role with the World Class program at the time. And if I remember rightly, I think your lorry broke down somewhere between Calais and the event. And somehow you managed to get your 2 ponies there on the back of someone else's lorry. And tell me about those 2 ponies, because I think, was one of them a Highland? I mean, I think you were saying there about, like, you had these quirky, slightly tricky ponies and maximizing what you had. And there you were over in Harras at an international event overseas, competing with probably a slightly, non-conventional pony.
Yes, actually, unorthodox is the word that was often used to describe said half Highland pony. So
apologies, half Highland.
Half Highland. Don't forget the half. The other half was actually Primitive Rising. It's thoroughbred disease. So.
Okay.
Totally
Very well bred, half Highland.
Yeah, no, but totally, it did look like a Highland, 100%. Definitely had the body of the Highland and maybe a head of the thoroughbred and the gallop of the thoroughbred, but not much else resembled, Primitive Rising or any kind of top level event pony or horse. So that was the little dun pony. That was awful name to match weird breeding. Winnell BB Banwy. So commentators used to love that one. Winnell BB Banwy. So the BB apparently stood for big bum, because she had such a huge bum, because it was like the Highland bum. So the stud who bred her was, I think, Winnell stud. And then apparently there was some, I'm sure they won't mind me saying, because I'm pretty sure they actually, these were their words, some mad aunt that they used to call Banwy. And I think she used to like this foal. So they Winnell and then basically big bum Banwy. So good start, turn up at Haraz with a pony named like that. And then the chestnut pony, who I eventually went on the next year to be reserved for the GB pony team on, the Royal Guest, her name was. I actually got her from Susie Berry. So that's how I know Susie and first met Susie. So yeah, back in the kind of pony days, Susie was a bit older and had done a bit of eventing with the Royal Guest, and then I'd taken over. And I think Susie would remember she was very difficult on the flat and wasn't really built for it. She was a very careful pony, and she was a very typical chestnut mare. So I think Spike will remember she was so naughty in her dressage test in Haraz. I actually got asked to trot up again after, because I think the judges thought there might have been something wrong with her, because she did such a terrible dressage test and completely embarrassed me. But I was just so thrilled to be there in an international arena, and I had no clue what I was doing. But yeah, it was just such an amazing experience, and it's really funny because so many people remember that event, and they still say to me, I remember that you were the only one to jump. There were 3 clears in this pony class. And there was it was a bit like, almost like a Europeans of another pony Europeans, because it had all the combinations sort of pony-wise that were going to Europeans, and really good ponies and pony riders. So it was a really strong field, and there were only 3 clears, one of which was the winner. And the other 2 clears were me on my 2 ponies. And everyone always seems to remember, I remember you did those 2 brilliant clear show jumping rounds. I mean, I'm pretty sure they weren't that brilliant. I kind of probably just scrubbed around and whatever. But, that
it was effective.
Great experience. Yeah, exactly. And, again, that dun pony, my God, when we first got her, I remember I took her to a 90 unaffiliated show jumping. I think she was 8 when I had her, and she'd done a few 90s. She might have done a 100. I think she might have done a 100 before I got her, but she'd had 4 down or something. Anyway, I took her to this unaffiliated 90, and it just crashed through 4 jumps in the 90. That properly took these rails out. And that was in 2012. So she was doing that in sort of the summer of 2012, and I came out the ring and my mum went, my God, that pony's never going to do a novice. And actually that pony did actually go on to not only go to Haraz and show jump clear there, but also won a BE novice, so not even an under 18 novice, just a normal novice class against horses at Tweedledon in 2013. And I was very pleased with myself because I beat Jock Paget. So, I thought I was the best thing ever after. No, I'm joking, but it was just so funny.
He would have been very much at the height of some of his successes in sort of 2013, 2014 time. I mean, 2013, I think, was the year that he won that really, really tough badminton, the one that Sam talks about a lot on the show. Can I ask you then, so making a career out of horses, that you said your mum wasn't keen on it. Was it always the plan for you, or was it your sort of first international taste that gave you the real push in that direction?
No, so it wasn't always a plan. Well, when I was much younger, kind of up to the age of probably, 8 or 9, I used to say I wanted to be a jockey and a hairdresser, apparently. Wow. Very odd combination. Not sure if I was planning on doing... I don't know if I was planning on doing those careers paths both at the same time or what it was. So that was one. And then when I got to probably about 9, I actually wanted to be a vet. And I did quite a lot of work.
Then
That's such a bad idea. That's such a bad
Another
idea.
bad career choice. So yes, I picked all my GCSEs, to kind of did my triple science and stuff with a view to taking all the sciences at A level. So this vet idea did go on for a fair while, but you're probably right, Nicole. It probably was because I'd have been 15 when I went to that first international in Harasso, year 10, just before GCSEs, and I think that probably was a bit of a turning point because I did try quite hard for my GCSEs and did very well in them. And then when it came to picking my A levels and I was doing the juniors, my A levels I wasn't so interested in. So yes, I definitely did start to. I think it was also the juniors as well when I officially moved on to horses and was doing those junior trials and started getting a few better results and jumping around some intermediates, thinking, oh, maybe I could do this. I think probably after my GCSEs was a bit of a turning point for me. But I think underneath it all, I wanted to do it since I kind of joined BE, but just kind of said the vet thing to keep my mum happy.
Talk to me about that sort of junior young rider journey, because it started, I think you were reserved for the juniors, was it in 2015, with a horse called Rainstown Frost, who you produced yourself from a 5-year-old.
Yeah, good old Frosty, bless his heart. So yeah, Frosty was my first horse. And we actually got Frosty through a swap. My mum had bought a horse from a dealer, and we wanted to not have that horse. So we actually took this horse back to the dealer, and we were just like, God, what have you got? You got anything we can just swap this with? And he pulled out this very scruffy grey gelding, just been bought from the sales in Ireland, and chucked me on top, me being 14 at the time. So this was 2012 in the January, I think. And I remember coming into these fences, and I remember when I tried to take a bit of a check down the rein. Oh my God, it just stuck its head in the air and went straight through this fence. And then the guy was just don't touch the reins, just don't touch the reins. It's fine if you don't touch the reins. I was thinking, oh well, great, that stands me in really good stead for taking this round event. So he was riding 5, and the plan was, we said, oh God, just, get it on the lorry, we'll take this one home, this will do, kind of attitude. And the plan was to produce him and do a 90 on him, like an unaffiliated, and then sell him. And I did said 90, I think, in probably the July of that year or the June perhaps. And an unaffiliated, I nearly had to be given oxygen at the end of the cross country in this 90 because I had to work so hard to get him round because he was so slow and so green. And it kind of did the whole course in a zigzag. He just didn't have a clue. He's so gobby, couldn't touch his mouth. And did that. And then I said, I saw these 5-year-old classes. And I thought, I'd like to have a go at them. So I ended up doing a couple of 5-year-old classes with him where he sort of jumped a couple double clears and was doing quite well at 100 level. And kind of kicked off really. We kept him for that winter. And as soon as we went into his 6-year-old year, I think he jumped 5 double clears in a row at his first 5 novices. And I was 15 at the time then, so I was still on ponies. 2013. So then I kind of never looked back from then and just carried on with him. Little Connemara Irish cross. Not really sure what his breeding was. It wasn't anything that I would sort of remember or look twice at. But no, he, again, looking back, what an amazing first horse he was, and actually ended up jumping double clear around my first advance with him when I was 18, and did the juniors with him as well. So did the young riders at Houghton, and he was just amazing. He's just so cool, such a good jumper, and the gobbiness did get better. It was always there, but it got better.
It's brilliant though, isn't it, to be able to be maximizing the potential and the skills of a horse like that. There's always a perception that you need these sort of real flashy types, and isn't that what you learned from having him as a combination, producing them to a point where you can keep developing your own skills, and it's not straightforward and it's not easy, but going double clear at your first advance with a horse you produce from a 5-year-old when you're 15, I mean, that's mental. And I think that's all real credit to you, and what we're talking about having not unconventional. That seems a bit harsh and Port Frosty, but like, finding horses and finding these little diamonds in the rough, because they're there, and with application and with time and with the right attitude and the right talent and skills, where what you can then produce. And that sort of kind of moves on to the horse that I really first knew you for, Felicity, who was, he's known as Mickey, but RSH Contend Or, slightly odd naming that he has, but I mean, who I met through my first year as being the junior team vet. And I mean, I sort of picked him at that point thinking this guy's hashtag future star. But I mean, a horse with all the talent in the world and all the scope and a great brain. And he was, you picked him up as a young horse and you produced him from a young age as well. Is that right? Where did you source him from?
Yeah, so I got Mickey in the May of 2015. So he was coming sixth that year, and we bought him from Richmond Sport Horses. And it came about. I mean, it is a little bit one of those cliche stories, like you find something when you're not really looking. I was doing my first year of A levels, and I'd already bought a young horse from Richmond Sport Horses the year before as a 4-year-old. So I thought, I followed them on Facebook, and I saw this lovely horse come up on their Facebook page, and I saw hundreds of comments and things, and I actually commented on this post of his for sale advert saying, something like, I love this one. If only I could have another one, because I wasn't in the position to buy one. And then I very sneakily, a few weeks went by, and I then very sneakily showed my owner, my very loyal, long-standing owner, Averina Milton, a video of him, because she loves bay geldings. So I didn't tell my mum, and I just showed her this video. I said, just look at this horse jump. And she watched this video, and that was it. We've got to go and see this horse. We've got to go and see it. And I actually had a phone call from Sarah, who runs Richmond Sport Horses at the time. And she rang me up and she said, Sam Penn, now Sam Sweeney, had been riding for her and producing him a bit. And Sam ended up leaving the yard, so no one was there to ride Mickey, so she couldn't really show him off to anyone. And I think she had viewings booked in and was unable to show him off to people. And she rang me up because obviously she'd seen my comment and she knew me. And it was actually when Babington was on the TV at the time. Again, so cliche, but so true. It's actually what happened. And I paused Babington and went outside and answered my phone and said, look, this horse I've got, you've got to come and see it. She said, I can't really sell it at the moment to anyone else. I know how you ride. I think he'd really suit you. I need to sell him. Just come and have a look at him, because this will be your Babington horse list. And I thought, oh yeah, right, of course it will. So anyway, having showed my owner's video, we jumped in the car and not far, just West Sussex, so about half an hour from us, and went and saw him. And my mum said that when I rode him, I had the same look on my face when I rode him as when I rode my first ever pony down the driveway at age 3. And she just said she always remembers my face when I was 3, because I was just my first pony, that proud look. I was basically smirking, probably looking quite smug. And apparently I had the same look on my face when I first rode Mickey. And we didn't have him vetted. We made an offer then and there, or my owner did. We weren't going home without him, because my owner.
We shouldn't be encouraging that, by the way. That's not like something that we should be encouraging.
No, Spike is all his business here.
Idea. How did this work out well for you?
Sorry. I have all of my horses vetted and X-rayed now. You'll be pleased to know. I'm very lucky there. To be fair, he'd not long come over from Holland, and he did come. Sarah's very good. She gets them all vetted and X-rayed when they arrive at hers or before she buys them. So, anyway, I brought him home, and he was. If you look at his record as a 6-year-old, he was very difficult. He used to have 20 after 20 after 20. He used to just take one look at a perhaps shiny or a white fence, and he would just turn around and go in the other direction, or cock his jaw and run past it. If you look at his record, I think he had 3 20s in a row at one point. And he was always very brave with ditches and water, but just so sharp and so spooky. So that was something we then had to build fences in the field at home. My mum and I draped white tarpaulin over them, jump him over every single fence or bit of spooky thing we could find, and his eyes would be bulging out of his head, and he'd be cat leaping them and trying to run past them, and he was just a bit wild, really. And we finished that that first year I had with him, finished the year at the 6-year-old champs at Osberton, and everything kind of had honed in at that point, and he jumped an amazing double clear there, and he just felt so special. And that was when I really thought, oh, actually, he might take a while, but he's going to be a real proper one. And it was only less than a year later that he was at the Junior Europeans. God, if you'd have told me out of the 3 horses I was doing junior trials on, it would have been him, a 7-year-old who'd been eventing for 18 months. I would have said that you were crazy to pick him out of all of them.
Is the video of him at that European still on your social media anywhere, Felicity? Because that cross country round is mental.
Mental in a good way, Spike.
I know.
Mental in a great way. I mean,
just clarifying it.
He's jumping a grand. He's in a team as a 7-year-old. Also, everyone needs to look at the horse's show jumping record, which is pretty much impeccable. And he jumped around this cross-country track and he made it look like some sort of BE 90. I mean, the scope on this guy. And I remember saying to you on that Sunday evening at the end, after we got our team bronze medal, saying, this is a 5-star horse. This is a proper horse. You will take this all the way to Badminton and Burghley.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And yeah, that video is on my YouTube channel. So I think if you just search my name and then Junior Europeans, it comes up. But I had a lot of people trying to buy him off that video, and the answer was always a very firm no. But the video is really interesting because it wasn't, although he does look incredible, it wasn't a perfect round. You see, he doesn't see that corner coming out of one of the fields. It was on a bit of a blind line, and he did not see it till the last stride. I mean, I felt like I was telling him for 5 strides out, and he is a very strong horse, and I find him quite strong. And I think actually I was probably collapsed after cross country, and Spike, you're probably like trying to revive me or busy looking up to him. I think
I was busy doing the horse, in fairness.
Yeah, not interested in the rider.
That is my role, in fairness.
Yeah, no, it is. You're quite right. I'd much rather go with Mickey than to me hyperventilating on the ground somewhere. But no, he is just unbelievable, and he is a freak of nature. And I don't know if you also remember Spike and Nicole. You probably maybe haven't seen this video, but in 2016, one of our trials for the juniors was doing Barbary in the old short format 2-stars, in the old CIC 2-star, and he was only 7, and I wouldn't really have taken him there, but it was off one of our long list trials, and that quarry at Barbary used to have a little jump on top of one of the lips. And I remember Caroline Moore walking it and saying, you're going to have to really kick here. And I thought, I'm not going to kick this horse. I can't hold it. Anyway, I came into it and I had him. I remember that feeling. I was like, I've got you. You're not going anywhere. And there was sort of 3 strides up this bank. And I went 1, 2, waited for the next one, and he just took off and he jumped over this fence and he jumped to the bottom of Barbary Quarry. I don't know how I didn't die. I don't know how he didn't die. And I've got this video of me just disappearing behind the mound. And I was on his neck when I landed, and you had to go out and pop over the wall. And unfortunately, it was an A and a B because I did a circle, and I thought, can't believe that just happened. What do I do? Do I carry on? I'm on this 7-year-old. And I just thought, well, I'll see if he wants to carry on jumping, because surely that would have frightened the life out of him. And I popped out over the wall, popped the next combination, and he was like, yeah, we're carrying on.
Fine.
And so I got a 20 for crossing my tracks, but he essentially jumped to double clear. But it was mental. I still have people coming up to me saying, oh my God, that's the horse that jumped to the bottom of Barbary Quarry. And he is a little bit like that. He is a bit of a freak.
I know that a lot of people are going to go and look at this up on YouTube. I'm going to be one of them when we finish recording. But talk us through that sort of championship experience, because you say that was sort of the turning point in terms of wanting to make a career out of it. It was a pretty dreamy championship debut, to be fair. Montelibretti in the Junior Europeans in 2016, and it was a year that he didn't have a pole down in 12 national and international rounds that year. He was faultless in the show jumping. We've got a cool show jumping stat for you later, actually. But he finished inside the top 10 individually. It was a team bronze for the team as well. Was that the real sort of moment that you thought, do you know what, I want to do this? This is my future?
Yeah, and I think it was one of those things that I was very, very obsessive about these European championships for a long time before I actually got to a championship. I started off with watching the pony championships and stuff, and just thought, wow, like what an amazing thing to be able to represent your country. And the thing that always, I quite literally, again, massively corny and cheesy, and can't believe I'm actually telling you, but it's one of those things that I would fall asleep at night thinking and dreaming about, that feeling of jumping the last show jump at a championship and knowing that you've done really well and you're on a team and you put in a really good performance. That feeling of coming through the finish, everyone screaming, that was the feeling that I just saw videos of and pictures of, but just was desperate to experience it. And I was so lucky that in Italy it was a moment quite like that. And they always say that your dreams or whatever, they're never quite how you really think they're going to be. And honestly, that moment was exactly sort of everything I wished and thought it would be. And so it was so amazing to sort of jump that last show jump and have finished with a clear round in the show jumping and finished on my dressage score, and to win the bronze as well was just a total dream. I don't think I even thought I would ever win a medal. I knew I was going to a championship, and that was, my God, that was enough as it is. If you'd have heard me on the phone, it was Ginny Keane rang me to tell me that they wanted Mickey on the team. And it was that year, wasn't it, Spike, that the championships were really late. They're in September. So we had a really, really long run up. So usually you have the spring trials and the championships are in kind of July time. But we had to wait till September. So it was a hell of a long year waiting and waiting. It was my last year in juniors, and I hadn't got on the team the year before with Rainstown Frost, and I was so desperate to get on this team. And when I finally got the call from Ginny, I just cried. I was literally hysterical on the phone because, okay, yeah, it's only a junior Europeans, but for me at that time, that was like the pinnacle of my career. And I just remember Ginny on the end of the phone just saying, "Are you all right, lovey? Are you all right, lovey?" I think she thought she'd like done something terrible. So it was just the whole experience of from being selected to going there. And like I say, I was just amazed to even be there. Had the best week. I didn't even think, this is the place where you win those medals that I see people wearing and winning and whatever. And then the fact that I was stood on a podium having a medal put around my neck was just like, my God, I just couldn't believe I kind of had done it. And that was then definitely a taste of thinking, I'm so lucky that, he was only 7 at the time. And I thought, wow, I have a chance to maybe do this again with him. So then that was what I wanted to do from then on.
And then that rolled on to the following year where the two of you became young rider national champions in your first year of young riders at Houghton in the what's now a long 3-star for the young riders, which is the sort of the trial. Did you feel as though therefore that first championship experience within the juniors was that platform to kind of really push on and move on from there? Because that was a great result for you in your first year of young riders.
Yeah, I think I was just so happy to have gone to the juniors and I knew that I had 3 years left in young riders, and I wasn't even really thinking about being on a young rider team because I was so aware that I had a lot of people who were kind of a couple of years older than me that had been sort of on the young rider scene for a few years and with lots of different horses. And so I just wanted to go and get a qualification. Him only being 8 in the first time at that level, I thought I could be in with a chance of doing well. And obviously I would have, I dreamt that I could do well, but I didn't obviously think it could really happen. I really just was dreaming of taking him to Blenheim in the autumn because I didn't really kind of think about the Europeans. I just thought, I'd love to sort of aim for that. I was always one of those, I was always kind of aiming at something a little bit that sort of felt a bit out of my reach. And I think with the selection stuff, it wasn't quite within my control because it was on selector's choice and everything. So Blenheim I knew was a little bit more tangible. So I was kind of ticking boxes of qualifications to get there. But yeah, when I won Houghton, which was just unbelievable, best again, another incredible week. Then it kind of obviously felt a little bit more real and a bit more possible.
How do you think, so obviously you went to the juniors in 2016, 2017 you were in Mill Street for the Young Rider Europeans and took a team bronze, and then it was team gold in Marsbergen last year in your last year of Young Riders. How do you think the junior Young Rider platform has sort of shaped the rider that you are now?
I think riding under pressure is a big factor with the youth programs. Not only obviously the trials leading up to selection, which are actually I found more stressful than being at the championships, because it's almost that, when you're doing the trials, you're just doing the best you can do, and if someone thinks it's good enough, then great. But when you actually get to the championship, it's more about obviously trying to do your absolute best as well, but kind of thinking, I've got here and I'm going to try and enjoy it. But I think, being able to ride under pressure and, going in the ring on the last day and knowing that, perhaps your pole might, or jumping a clear could contribute to holding on to that team medal or losing it. It is a lot of pressure, and there's so many people behind the scenes that for those championships, have to come together, and it really is such a team effort that, we're all, desperate to bring home something to kind of show for our efforts. So I think, definitely riding under pressure and, and just getting that taste of what it is like to be in a team environment, for, hopefully one day senior championships and the Olympics and stuff. You get such a good taste of it. And I'm sure seniors and stuff is very different, but, you're competing against such a high caliber of rider, whether they're 17, 18, 19, whatever. They're all amazing, and the horses that are competing are amazing as well. So it's really competitive, and it's just to be able to, whatever your placing is, that's against the best in Europe. Just gives you a real taste of kind of, I guess, what's to come.
And so last year was a big year for you, being Pathfinder for the Young Rider team gold at Marsberg, and then on to your 5-star debut. Talk us through that, real getting up to the pinnacle of the sport with not only, Mickey with RSH Contendor, but also your lovely mare, Just Amazing, who's a homebred. What did it mean to you to bring two horses up to that 5-star level at the same time, while still a young rider?
Yeah, I mean, it was, again, I felt a fair bit of pressure being my last year in Young Riders, which I think, might seem a bit odd because I'd, already been to Young Riders and been to juniors, and, I kind of knew what it was all about. But it was different going into my last year and thinking, this is my last shot to kind of make it count. And also then the logistics of it, of trying to run the horses, especially Mickey, he's a very difficult horse. He's really sharp and sensitive, as I've mentioned, and trying to do things like, for him, teaching him the flying changes on the flat for all the 4-stars, which he's been competing at 4-stars since the end of 2017, and then having to bring him back down to a now 3-star test to do the counter canter, and he's not allowed to do a flying change. He's not allowed to do all these other movements. He finds that very frustrating, and I found that really difficult. The trying to produce the best results at 4-star, and you often, when you're teaching these horses a new movement, you kind of have to go through a bit of a bumpy patch to come out the other side. And often when they, starting their flying changes, they'll kick out, they won't understand, they get a bit hot and stressed about it. So then for me, one week I'm trying to teach him a flying change, and then the next week I'm trying to do a selection trial or do a long list training, and he's not allowed to do that. And it did make his flat work fairly difficult. And I thought, oh God, I've almost took him above what he needed to do for the Young Riders, because I'd been competing him at that level for a fair while. I think most young rider horses will kind of stay at that level, and I know some riders deliberately do that to stay at that level so they don't sort of upset the horses. And then once you're out of the Young Riders, you don't have to do that dressage test anymore. You can crack on with your changes and your difficult movements and, running them fast across country and all the rest of it. But I was kind of trying to do a balancing act with both of them. So running up to the championship, that I found that really difficult. And obviously it was stuff like I couldn't run him at Bramham in the under 25s because of the fact that it was only a few weeks before the Europeans. So there's a bit of a kind of a juggling act and a bit of, having to make some sacrifices. And, then there was a point where I thought, should I be with this horse that I've got now, cracking on with him and trying to get some experience at the 4-stars under my belt and do the likes of Bramham, or do I miss it for another year and do the Young Riders, which is a lower level, but, an opportunity I'll never get ever again. So anyway, we did the Young Riders, and I'm so glad we did, because although I felt an immense amount of pressure all week, getting a gold was just like going out on a gold was just amazing. And And yeah, then obviously little Maisie, as we call her, just amazing. She is just, bless her, exceeded all our expectations. She's one of those horses that, yes, okay, you look at her record, it's not perfect. She can go out and whip round with me at fence 2, or she can go and storm round a 4-star long and be placed really well. But it's one of those things that she's homebred and she's special to us and she doesn't owe us anything. And so just to have them both qualified for the 5-star was amazing. And they've come up the levels kind of together a bit, and to kind of produce them both. Obviously I took over the ride on Maisie from my mum. Once she'd done some novices, but basically having one kind of home produced and one produced was just incredible. And it was kind of one of those things that just to get there and to go there I knew would be an experience, and kind of whatever happened. And unfortunately it wasn't a great week for me in Poe results wise, but it's I did learn a lot from it. At the time I probably didn't think I did, and it was just a bit disappointing, but looking back I learned a massive amount about both of my horses and about myself as a rider as well. So, and that's the kind of experience you can't get unless you go out and do it, and sometimes it comes from a mistake and a bad result, and unfortunately everyone sees it and hears about it, but hopefully I'll look back in a few years time and it won't seem so bad.
How do you so that I think that you touched on something there which I think is such a key area for our younger riders that are coming through, that sheer resilience to look back on what, as you say, was you competing at the pinnacle of the sport at 5-star in Poe, and having what could seem immediately as a bit of a disappointing week or weekend, and then you can look back on it now and see such strong positives. What do you think can how have you been able to get yourself into that mindset that you can look back on it in that way?
I think what's really helped me is looking back at other top riders, and looking back at the starts of their careers. And obviously some riders are really lucky, and kind of from the get-go you hear those stories where they're doing amazing things around 5 stars when they're 19 and all the rest of it. But the vast majority have started off and it hasn't been plain sailing. And I think for me it's just perspective, looking at some of the best riders in the sport, and then if you go and look back at their records, and it's not in a way of being like, oh, they weren't very good or anything. It's just a level of understanding of, like, we just have to get this experience. Like, if I don't go out there and get it, how am I ever going to get it? And I think just that relatability, and we were watching some of the old I think it was badminton videos, and it was when Pippa was quite young doing her first few events, and she had a couple of bad falls and a couple of not so great results, and then that was sort of in the mid to late 90s, and then I think, well, God, she was winning the Grand Slam by 2003, and so that's what perhaps was a period of 6, 7, 8 years, and the difference between her starting off her career at that level and then becoming a winner at it, then kind of gave me a bit of perspective and just made me think, well, she carried on and learned from it. And that's all these riders do. So people have bad days and bad results, and they always pick themselves back up and carry on and learn from it. And you have that thing of looking back and saying, God, didn't they have that terrible fall then? Or didn't they have that bad result on that same horse a couple of years ago, and now they're back winning? So I think I've just learned from watching and seeing other people's experiences, really.
What next? Because obviously it was the dream to get up to 5-star at the back end of last year, and 2020 hasn't played out at all how any of us thought it would. What was the plan coming into this year, and what is the plan now with the horses in your team?
Yeah, really difficult to say. I think my location is a little bit of a problem as well, because I'm down in the southeast. There hasn't been that many events for us to really justify sort of going to. So I haven't actually run that much, although of course no one really has, but I probably run a lot less than some people have. So yeah, my horses have been kept ticking over during lockdown in the quieter period, but the sort of horses that I ride are not really ones that I can jump back on and just go out all guns blazing and win on. They need a few pre-runs to get their heads in the game, whether that's from, going back to being spooky and green and feeling like I'm riding a 5-year-old all over again. So that's been a bit tricky with planning things and, being sensible and thinking, I've just got to be, sensible about this year. So I'm going to take one to Burnham Market in the 4-star long. And then I think I'll probably head to Little Downham for the 4-star short there as well. And that's kind of as far as I've got. I've literally been taking, for someone who likes to plan ahead and have a real vision of where I'm going, just kind of had to take one event at a time and just, think I'll do that one and then see where the horses are at. I'll do that one, then I'll enter that one maybe. And then for next year, hopefully, I should really be thinking about going to Badminton with RSH Contendor. So that is kind of in the back of my mind. But I'm the kind of person that if I get really riled up about it, I'll just start worrying about it. I'm more better off. Actually, Corinne Bracken said a really good expression to me because I said, I feel like I should go to Badminton. I'm really worried because, oh my God, it's Badminton. She's like, it's just an event in a field in Gloucestershire. That's all it is. That event in Gloucester. And I was like, okay, perfect. That's how I look at it. So maybe we might be going to that event in Gloucestershire in May next year. But I'm just one of those people that I just think take it one event at a time now. And just do what's best for the horses and, what I think they're ready for. And if they've got their heads in the game, then great.
I think that's very sensible, particularly in the year that we've had. It would be very easy to sort of wind yourself up and worry about what is happening. And actually, a lot of it is uncontrollable. It can be the Beaufort Gymkhana. There you go. That's the new name for badminton.
Yeah. Perfect.
You just touched upon it there, mindset. It's been a topic of a lot of discussion over the last few months. Is it something that you've worked on particularly yourself?
Yeah, massively so. So through the Juniors and Young Rider program, usually you get the chance to running up to the championship. I'm not sure if they still do it now, but certainly before the juniors, we got the chance to speak to a sports psychologist. So that was kind of on a brief note. And then I actually, for the last 2 years, I think it is now, I've been working with Jenny Winter, who is a sports psychologist, and I work with her and we work on mindset and, dealing with the pressure and things, because although on the outside and from my results, and there's been quite a few times where I've had to jump or perform under pressure, it might look like I'm a really confident person and that I deal with it all really well. I really struggle with it. And actually, when I was younger, I think I must have been 15. I actually have had hypnotherapy for my nerves before because I get so nervous. I've been sick while sitting on my pony before, like going cross country before. Just a disclaimer, I had only drunk water that morning anyway, so because I can't eat on the morning of cross country usually, I do get nerves which aren't very pleasant, and honestly it's a thing I'm constantly dealing with. It's not just a case of that, I'm old enough now, my nerves are gone. I think it's something I'm always going to have to deal with and probably struggle with, and it's something I have to put a lot of time and effort into as well. I'm not lucky to be one of those people that can kind of put it to the back of my mind and just not think about it again. I naturally, just want to do well. And it's that fear of making a mistake and beating yourself up about it afterwards and just wanting to show the horse off to the best of their abilities and not wanting to let them down. It's something that I have to work on all the time and something I'm going to be working on a lot through the winter as well. And hopefully then if there is a big event in the spring, I will be feeling sort of ready to tackle it with a normal amount of nerves, a fine, not a ridiculous amount. Where I feel like
nerves are good. Nerves are good, just not too many of them.
There's lots of people out there that will relate to that, though, isn't it?
100%.
At whatever level people are competing at, that in nerves and embracing it and embracing the challenge and therefore using it as a way of powering yourself to better results and to be able to see it as a positive is the challenge of the sport and the challenge of the mindset. Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? Big picture now. We've got a plan for the spring with a little Gymkhana, but what would you do? You have a sort of a 10-year plan, 5-year plan, or is it a matter of keeping a mind in the game, keeping a positive mindset, and seeing where life takes you?
I think I would just really love to have a nice yard of horses and, a nice string of horses with supportive owners, and, be able to have a sort of a stable business as well as anything else. Because I think what people on the outside forget about, a lot of us event riders who, have to fund our careers and, rely on owners. It's really hard. It's not just that we go out, everyone sees us going to these big events and, riding our lovely horses in the middle of the field somewhere, jumping big jumps, but they don't really see the bigger picture behind it, which is, trying to, attract those owners or, be teaching till late at night and stuff. So it would just be, I would just love to have kind of a really stable business plan, a really good setup, a lovely team of horses from, the youngsters to the top level. And I really like and enjoy improving kind of our facilities at our yard at home. So anytime I sell a horse, it usually goes into something, like resurfacing a school or building a lunge pen or building a wash bay and stuff like that. So I'd like to, have a really good working environment and nice yard to run those hopefully lovely team of horses from.
I think that's a really refreshing and mature point of view, actually, because it's very easy to say, oh, I'd love to win badminton, I'd love to win Olympic gold, and I'm sure you would, but actually you've got to have all of that first before you can get to those points. Otherwise it's either going to be a flash in the pan or you're not going to get there. So I think that is a really really positive way of looking at it. Just quickly before we go, because I have got a very cool EquiRating stat for you. So our lovely analyst, Georgia Patrick, has been digging through the EquiRatings databases, and we've touched upon show jumping. And I know it's something that you did a lot as a youngster when you were growing up, a lot of unaffiliated show jumping and everything like that. But at 4-star level, so that's both short and long format, from riders that have 20 or more runs. So they've got to have been established at that level this decade. There's 150, just shy of 149 to be totally precise, riders that have had that many runs this decade. Now, in terms of show jumping clear rate, you are ranked out of all of those riders 11th. And so you have a 57% clear rate show jumping, which is an absolutely extraordinary figure. But I want to throw some of the names at you. So Laura Collett actually tops the list. Philip Dutton is in there, Julia Krajewski, Will Coleman, Sam Watson. I've got to mention Sam. But you are ahead of, and you will love this, you're ahead of Chris Burton.
No way.
Yeah, ahead of Chris Burton, Yoshiaki Iowa, Porrick McCarthy. He was a former show jumper, jumped at Grand Prix level in a former life. Yep, you're ahead of him.
Wow, I know. Wow.
Piggy French, or Piggy March, I should say. You're ahead of her as well. So all of that show jumping from a young age is absolutely coming into its own now at the top level. So I thought you'd like that one. I think that's quite cool to be up there among those and above those names as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I think I'm very lucky to ride such good jumping horses.
Can I ask you, before we let you go, a horse in your yard obviously will be following RSH Contendor and just amazing and your top horses, but is there a young horse in your yard that our listeners can look out for and follow their journey?
Well, I actually sold a couple of very nice young horses recently. Obviously I produced them from 3-year-olds and to fund the business and everything I've just talked about, and building a wash bay and things like that. But I have a really lovely 5-year-old that we bought through an auction from Belgium a few months ago, and she's called, well, we call her Contessa, but her full name is Contessa van den Muggenhoek, something like that.
Oh,
it's on my website.
Sounds like a name I would love as a commentator, to be honest.
Catchy name.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Contessa, we'll just call her. But the reason why we bought her is because she is actually out of a mare who is by Nintendo, which is the same sire as Mickey, RSH Contender. So she is Mickey's niece. So there was a method behind the madness of buying her through an online auction, which I wouldn't usually do. And she's co-owned by Avrina Milton as well, who co-owns RSH Contendor. So she is a lovely, lovely young horse. She probably won't event this year, but hopefully watch out for her as a 6-year-old. I would love to aim her at the 6-year-old champs at the end of the year next year.
Okay, there you go, listeners. One for you to watch. And the breeding, I know, is something that you're extremely passionate about as well. And I know something your mum was and still is. And I'm sure that we will see that as part of your business plan in the future.
Yes, definitely. Well, I mean, business plan, not so much, because I'm definitely going to want to keep all of them, aren't I, when I start thinking
problem,
about selling them. Yes. So, yeah, we have 3 lovely mares that we breed out of. Just amazing. One of my top horses being one of them. We do embryo transfer from her, and a lovely Billy Mexico mare and a Garib mare who have entered up to intermediate. So we've got youngsters from all of them. And we've got 3 by Le Prince de Bois, who you'll probably remember, Kai Ruder's ride. Yeah, lovely French stallion. So yeah, got some of them. Got one by Kevin and got one due for next year. By Chris Burton's Caliber Royale, that lovely stallion as well. So got a bit of a mix going on there. So yeah, really excited and love that part of it. And you know, they make a bad day so much better as having a foal to play with until they turn into massive great horses that you have to ride and back and hope they don't buck you off. But no, I'm very excited about that part of it as well.
Well, we cannot wait to follow your journey. Felicity, thank you so much for coming on the show, because it has been absolutely fascinating to hear a little bit more about your story.
No, thank you for having me.
Spike, we knew that this show, we were both very, very excited about it, and it's absolutely lived up to my expectations. And I'm really excited about where the series will go in the future as well.
Yeah, hugely excited. And yes, and thank you for Felicity from myself as well. It's been a great insight into not only your background, but also your sort of mindset and attitude about how to grow and how to have a business and how to have a future in the sport. And yeah, can't wait to be doing a few more of these episodes with you, Nickers. I think there's going to be some other really interesting people to have on board with this, and I think I'd also open it up to the Flick group for other ideas of people that they'd like to hear from. I've got a list as long as my arm of people that I'm keen to get on with us to follow up from Felicity. So maybe we'll listen to some other ideas as well.
We will. If you've got any ideas, send them in. We would love to hear from you. But that is all we've got time for on the show. Felicity, your website, felicitycollins.co.uk, if anybody wants to come and look. How do they find you on social media?
So my Instagram is Felicity_Collins_eventing, and then my Facebook page is just Felicity Collins Eventing. And yeah, my website, as you mentioned. So yeah, on all of those.
Well, go and take a look, listeners. We hope you have enjoyed this very first episode in a brand new series called Future Stars. We will be back very soon with another show, but a huge thank you to Felicity and to Spike. And don't forget, in the meantime, subscribe, like, share, all of that. And we'll be back very soon. But thank you very much for listening. Thank you for listening to the EquiRatings Eventing podcast. This podcast is available for free on iTunes, Spotify, Podcast Addict, or wherever you usually listen to your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss an eventing episode. Find us at eventingpodcast.com or search Eventing Podcast on social media.